Chapter 41, Section 41, His fist will land on that guy someday. Chapter 42, I'm curious. When Natsume Yuu's reply arrived, Chitanda Eru and the others were genuinely happy for him. They had initially assumed that his recovery was only partial, but if that was true, the effect was far stronger than they'd imagined. Butterfly Kane said, "Then if the world-traveling function really activates, please help us, Yu. If you need anything, tell me. I'll do everything I can." Butterfly Kai, who had seemed hesitant before, spoke more directly now. With a master capable of fighting Kibutsuji Muzan on their side, the most critical issue was settled. The only regret was that no one knew when the world-traveling function would become available. Natsume Yuu answered plainly, "I just want to learn Kibutsuji Muzan's bloodline." He didn't hide his purpose. Saying so might win him Butterfly Kanai's favor, but Yu disliked relying on favors to gain goodwill. He wanted to be straightforward. "But I can't just ignore that," Butterfly Kanai thought, seeing how candid he was. Whatever his motive, he had helped them, and that mattered. She couldn't dismiss his request, and she found that his frankness made her respect him more. It gave her a clearer sense of his character. Many people would have hidden their aims while accepting help. Yu's openness was notable. The others felt similarly. Doma Umaru, Chitanda Eru, and Kato Megumi, though still inexperienced, were moved by his honesty. For a moment, their trust in Yu deepened. Doma Umaru said, "Then I'll have to train harder." Chitanda Eru added, "I'd love to be able to help when the time comes." Kato Megumi hesitated. "If we, with so little combat experience, go straight to the battlefield, won't we just be a burden?" But their anxious feelings faded quickly under Megumi's words. They were still novices. Even if they were stronger later, how could they face enemies with extreme regenerative abilities who ignored injuries and attacked relentlessly? Butterfly Kanae answered gently, "A battle against an enemy who fights to the death is too early for you now." She declined politely, then changed the subject. "Still, I'm grateful for your willingness to help." Both Doma and Chitanda wanted to contribute, and Butterfly Kanae accepted their goodwill. Doma Umaru sighed. "It's a shame. If we could play Yu's virtual reality game, at least we could adapt to combat in advance. Even if it was just a game, in a peaceful world that kind of practice was ideal. In the game, speed and power could be pushed beyond what they had in reality, helping them get used to high-speed combat. Butterfly Kane thought it sounded like a machine for training warriors, though to Natsume Yuu and the others, it was merely a game. A difference of worlds she hadn't voiced before. Chitanda Eru brightened. "I want to play too. Some of the monsters are so cute." Kato Megumi said, "It'd be great if the chat group could connect networks across worlds." "How would that even work?" Doma Umaru asked. Chitanda Eru smiled. "This chat group is already an impossible thing. If something impossible exists, could it make connecting across worlds possible? I'm so curious." Her curiosity spilled out in a rush. From her tone, Natsume Yuu could feel how overwhelmingly curious she'd become. "I'm a little curious too," Yuu admitted. "Why don't we try?" Doma Umaru suggested. "But how? How would we test it?" Butterfly Kane asked. Chitanda led the others, and their curiosity grew. "The easiest way is to exchange phones and see if there's a network," Natsume Yuu said. Phones were the most convenient way to test connectivity. Butterfly Kane, constrained by the technology of her time, hadn't thought of that. Chitanda said, "I thought of this idea first, so it fits me best, but I don't have a phone." Although wealthy, Chitanda's social circle was small, and she hadn't found a phone necessary. "I'll do it," Natsume Yuu offered. Before regaining his memories, he had been a child. After regaining them, he'd endured immense suffering. He had few desires, and his phone was practically clean, storing only contacts for Hanju Keide and a couple of others. He didn't worry about anything embarrassing on it. Doma Umaru exclaimed, "You're so decisive. Yu's mind must be really healthy." She'd been about to praise both physical and mental health, but stopped herself, thinking of Yu's past. Kato Megumi, who was ready to check, also paused. At their age, phones could contain all sorts of personal things. She hadn't expected Yu to hand his over so readily. It made her realize there was nothing in his phone that could cause scandal. Yu considered for a moment, then said, "Megumi, you take it." Understanding what Doma's remark implied, he handed the phone over and let Megumi extract it. "Hey, why not me?" You're biased, Doma protested, a little theatrically. She'd only known you a few days, but his frankness had already softened the walls around her heart. Aren't you still in class? Yu asked. Doma froze. The question made her realize the situation and intensified her envy of Megumi, not for any bad reason, just because she wanted to see phones from other worlds. Natsume uploaded item, phone. While Doma was muttering, Yu uploaded the phone. Kato Megumi, ready and waiting, immediately chose to retrieve it. Chapter 42, Section 42, a slight weight suddenly appeared in her hand. So that's how it is. Kato Megumi looked down at the phone, a sleek screen with no buttons, like something out of a sci-fi film. Following the power-on password Natsume Yuu had left, she unlocked it. It really works. She scanned the top of the screen. The signal indicator didn't say no signal. Her pupils widened in surprise. Curious, she set the phone on the desk. The moment it left her hand, the signal showed an error. Her eyebrows lifted, and she put her hand back on it. The signal immediately came back. She ran a few more tests and came to a conclusion. Tagumi uploaded item. Yes, but only when we're in contact. It really works. What's going on? Why does it work? I'm so curious. Is it because I have the chat group that I've become a bridge between worlds? We still know too little about this thing. Such an amazing device, and it has no intelligence at all. That's strange. Even game consoles come with instruction manuals. It's a bit inconvenient. Maybe there are features we're overlooking. But isn't the unknown more exciting to explore? Intelligence, it's better that it doesn't have any. If it had emotions, that would be even more troublesome. If the device had intelligence, it might only act according to the will of the chat group. You preferred the relaxed, less constrained atmosphere they had now. Ah, I understand. It's better this way, after all. Doma's sudden change in tone confused Chitanda and Butterfly Kanai. Why did Doma change so quickly? Maybe she's afraid of something like the robot crisis? Robot crisis? Chitanda Eru. That was a foreign case from the 90s. Eru began to explain. Much of what she said sounded so precise that Doma Umaru couldn't help but click her tongue, and Kato Megumi subconsciously opened Google to check. Some of Eru's details looked nearly copy-pasted from records. Butterfly. I see. I didn't expect something like this even now, after so much technological progress. After piecing together the information, Kanai sighed. Domomaru, Eru's memory is amazing. Kato Megumi, who had put the phone away, nodded silently. Chitandra, I just have a slightly better memory. Butterf, you, let me pay for the gaming equipment. Butterfly Kane glanced at the others. Doma and the rest are still students. They probably don't have much money. I have a little gold saved. Doma, I'll pay myself. She froze, realizing their worlds were different. Handing over money might not mean anything here. Reluctantly, she held back. She wanted to play, but not enough to ask others to cover it. Kato Megumi and Chitanda Eru thought the same. Me too. I'm just curious. I'll watch. Compared to what you've already helped with, money can't make up for it. She meant the UV lamp Chitanda had given before you joined the group, the texts from other worlds he discovered, the breathing technique he created. Those things couldn't be repaid with cash. Kanai's voice grew firmer. Besides, you wouldn't want to stand by if something happens in the future, would you? With this, you can spar normally and raise your awareness. Those words settled the others' hesitations. Katamumi. Thank you, Kanai. Thank you. Thank you. Butterfly Kane uploaded item. Natsume Yuu didn't refuse, but since he was still at school, he only clicked to view the item. He knew he would need their help later, and this was an early investment, but he couldn't always accept gifts either. Even if he trusted Megumi and the others, taking too much would make things awkward. Is that just a little bit? This is a ton. Such a large piece of gold. So Kanai is that rich. A round gold piece the size of a human head glowed on the screen. Even you raised an eyebrow at the scale. How many small coins could that be worth if processed? Butterfly. This was left over from medicine research my master had me do. I planned to return it, but my master said there was no need. Yu thought quietly. It's Kagayo Ubuyashiki's. No wonder. He had wondered how Kanae could have so much gold, and now it made sense. The Kagaya family had been around for over 1,000 years and had the ability to predict the future. They'd also organized the Demon Slayer Corps for generations. With so many members and equipment, their expenses couldn't be small. Chapter 44, The Coming Storm. Although the gold seemed excessive, Natsume Yuu decided to accept it. Kanae had already offered it. She clearly wanted to repay a kindness. He wouldn't be polite about refusing. He also didn't plan to sell it immediately. In many worlds, gold remained a useful reserve. As for day-to-day money, his mother, Natsume Reiko, doted on him and gave him 100,000 yen allowance every month. If he needed more, he could ask. He didn't have many expenses, so most of the allowance piled up into savings. He didn't even know how many millions were on his card now. The gold would go into storage. It might prove useful later. For beginners, I recommend you start with close combat to get familiar with fighting. In the real world, you can also buy a comparable weapon to feel the weight and length. Fighting wasn't just about punching or kicking. It involved managing distance, timing, and reading the opponent's movements. The fastest route to familiarity was close quarters combat. Then I'll choose a katana, just like you. Me too. Section 43. All the breathing techniques practiced in the group were sword-based, so the two of them had no choice but to get used to the tachi first. I'll use a dagger. It suits you, it's just a bit harder to practice with. As the saying goes, an inch longer is an inch stronger, an inch shorter is an inch riskier. Compared to a tachi, a dagger is short, disadvantageous against medium or long-range weapons. But in close quarters, a dagger is more flexible and merciless. Combined with Kato Megumi's own strengths, it would let her exploit the dagger's advantages perfectly. You, can you teach me? I can, but it'll be tiring. I'm ready. She had already gotten a taste of being more than an ordinary person. She wasn't willing to go back. Okay, if we order the gaming equipment tonight, it should arrive tomorrow evening. There's an event then. You can check it out. Tomorrow evening, I can't wait another second. She was so excited she wished for a button to skip straight to the next day. We'll have to wait, it's a bit far. Domomaru's impatience was understandable. Butterfly. Starting this afternoon, we pillars will begin receiving guidance from Mr. Kamado. After that, I might not appear as often. In preparation for the decisive battle, many pillars were going to receive instruction from Tanjiro Kamado to see whether they could awaken the transparent world and the mark. After learning the conditions to activate the red blade, the pillars would have to refine their bodies again and rebuild their physical strength. With that training schedule, even the pillars would have to devote considerable time and energy. Domomaru, it's regretful, but there will be time later. We'll train hard too. We want to be useful. Even during training, remember to rest. Donghuang said haste makes waste. Alternating tension with relaxation keeps you ready. And if you don't understand something, ask me. Okay. Kane smiled gently, her eyes bright. Then she closed the chat, looked toward the butterfly mansion, took a deep breath, and walked closer. Sister, why have the meetings been so frequent lately? As soon as she entered, Shinobu stepped forward. Her face was serious. Meetings had been held one after another in the last few days, and with Kane's recent actions, Shinobu sensed a storm was brewing. Shinobu, pack your things. Intensive training is about to begin. Kane reached out and patted her younger sister's head. Intensive training? Shinobu furrowed her brow, a tightening feeling in her chest. Yes. Members of the Demon Slayer Corps will soon receive guidance from the pillars. Kanai didn't go into detail, just said it would be training. All the pillars? Shinobu looked up in surprise. Shock filled her eyes. The pillars' time was precious and their appearances rare. Ordinary members hardly ever met them. To receive guidance from all the pillars was astonishing. Are we going to deal with the Demon King? Shinobu was no fool. The Corps' sudden flurry of activity made the target obvious. Only news about the Demon King would make them take such an unusual step. Yes, Kanai didn't hide it. She would need Shinobu's help later, developing a poison to suppress Kibutsuji Muzan. Hearing the confirmation, Shinobu's face lit up with fierce hatred. Their family had been torn apart when a demon attacked. Only 2 of 4 survived. Even though the demon had been killed, Shinobu's hatred had never gone away. Go pack. Kanai sighed inwardly but smiled. Okay. Shinobu dashed for her room, her smile undimmed by the weight of what lay ahead. It will be soon, Kanai murmured as she watched her sister go. Once Kibutsuji Muzan was gone, Shinobu wouldn't have to live with that hatred. She could be like Doma Umaru and the others, no longer risking her life with a blade, living without fear of becoming demon food in her sleep. To reach that day, Kanai resolved to work even harder. Her eyes shone with determination. Chapter 45. Because I was afraid of pain, I maxed out my defense. All right, keep this frequency steady from now on. Natsume Yuu watched Natsume Reiko work hard to maintain a specific breathing frequency and nodded. Okay. Reiko nodded automatically, her mind entirely focused as she adapted. I'll go upstairs first. Don't overdo it, he said, glancing at the time. It was already 8:30 p.m. After leaving the room, he headed upstairs. That afternoon, he'd agreed with Honju Keide to meet in the game at 8:30, and having learned from yesterday's mistake, he made sure not to forget. Upstairs, his phone had no unread messages. He put on his gear and lay back on the bed. Link start, he whispered, and his vision shifted. In an instant, the scene changed into the beginner town. Almost immediately after Natsume Yuu appeared, a purple cube formed beside him, and Maple materialized. She had short black hair with a simple white cross hairpin, wore rough linen clothes, and held a wooden shield. Her over-the-knee black socks and shorts left an appealing gap at her thighs, and brown boots completed the look. You. Good evening. Her bright eyes opened when she saw him, and a sweet smile bloomed. Good evening. Let's go. Today I'll take you to get a new outfit. Natsume Yuu's lips twitched into a small smile. Could it be? The Poison Dragon Cave? Maple stepped forward excitedly, leaning toward him. Golden cross-like sparkles seemed to flicker in her pupils. Chapter 44. Section 44. As a woman, Maple naturally cared a lot about her appearance, and with Natsume Yuu standing beside her, dressed so sharply, Honju Keide couldn't help but be impressed by his outfit. Because he had shown her around yesterday, she wasn't in any hurry to rush into the maze. She wanted to enjoy the moment first. Now that they were ready, excitement bubbled up inside her. Natsume Yuu gave a small nod and, with a gentle motion, tilted Keide's chin back. All right, then. What are we waiting for? Keide didn't object. She grabbed his wrist, intending to pull him forward, but since she hadn't put any points into movement speed, her heartbeat racing didn't translate into a quick pace. On the outside, she still ambled along slowly. Let's buy some potions first, she said. Without a word, Natsume Yuu changed direction and led her toward a shop. Because Keide was holding his wrist, she was naturally dragged along. Her level and strength stats were lower than his, so she couldn't resist him physically. Off to one side, 3 other players, Kato Megumi, Doma Umaru, and Chitanda Eru, watched her being pulled and whispered to one another. Chitanda, she looks so cute. Doma, why is her movement like that? Kato, even if her level isn't high, that speed is strange. Butterfly Kanai was currently in seclusion, but the live stream hadn't stopped. If anything, anticipation had only grown. Everyone was restless, waiting to play. Natsume Yuu kept the stream running and had already mentioned that he'd be bringing a friend to play with them tonight. On the group chat, a few messages popped up. Natsume Yuu explained casually, she put all her stat points into defense. All points into defense, Doma replied, baffled. As a more experienced gamer, she couldn't quite grasp that distribution. Yeah, she's afraid of pain, so she dumped everything into defense. Doma. What a simple reason. The two were a little at a loss for how to counter that logic. It made sense. If you're afraid of taking damage, you'd maximize defense. Besides, the pain mechanics in the game weren't that severe, but the explanation still felt plausible. Chitanda added warmly, she really is well behaved. Natsume didn't comment further. He was already looking forward to seeing how Maple would actually play. They entered the shop together. Welcome. What can I get you? Asked the shopkeeper. a tall woman with long light blue hair cascading to her waist and a curvaceous figure that left some of the younger viewers on the live stream speechless. Even the high schoolers in the chat had gone quiet at the sight. 10 antidotes and 10 healing potions, please, 10 of each, Natsume replied, his clear light purple eyes meeting the woman's. Oh, are you heading to the Poison Dragon maze? She asked, glancing at Kate's equipment. I do equipment forging here, if you ever have materials, she added with a smile, then quickly handed over the potions after taking the payment. Natsume slid the coins to Kate and introduced himself. By the way, I'm Yuu. The shopkeeper smiled brightly. I'm Izu. We'll be going now, Natsume said. He took Kate's hand and left. Watching them walk away, Izu propped her cheek on her hand and smiled to herself. She was a production-type player with a solid reputation, well regarded in many games as an expert. She'd seen the video on the forum, Yuu surrounded by monsters, handling impossible situations alone. The name Yuu was familiar throughout VRMO circles. Among free-to-play players, he was practically legendary. Soloing dungeons that took a dozen people for others, dominating PvP unless his opponent was a whale with impenetrable gear, players often called him a god of war. Naturally, many imitated him and failed spectacularly. I wonder what will happen with that kid beside him, Izu mused. She'd also seen the clip of the girl who'd fallen asleep and been surrounded by monsters, Honju Kade. The combination promised to be interesting. Outside of town, Natsume looked down at Kade. Your movement speed's too slow. I'll carry you so we can get there faster. That would be great, Kade said. Walking beside him was cumbersome given her stats, so she didn't refuse. Moments later, the two overlapped in the open air and shot off, kicking up a trail of dust. Natsume's speed left Kade's black hair streaming behind them as she rode on his back. Her round, still childish face broke into a delighted grin. Yahoo! She cheered. Their laughter echoed across the plains. Before long, they arrived at the entrance to the Poison Dragon maze. Unlike some anime portrayals where the area in front of a dungeon was left empty to save animation, here the entrance was lively. Players drifted in and out, figures appearing and disappearing as they prepared to enter. Everyone seemed to be making final preparations for tomorrow's event, so Natsume Yuu and his companions didn't draw much attention when they arrived. This is the Poison Dragon maze? It looks incredible, Honju Kade exclaimed as she looked around at the desolate landscape. Go on, Natsume said, setting the girl down from his back and ruffling her hair. Watch me. Nothing can break through my defenses. Honju Kade patted her chest vigorously, beaming with pride, and spoke in an exaggerated tone. Then she turned and strode toward the maze, stepping confidently inside. Chitanda Eru peered after her. Can that child really beat the poison dragon? She remembered how terrifying the poison dragon had looked, and, paired with Kade's innocent demeanor, couldn't help but worry. Doma Umaru scoffed. Full defense, how could she possibly take down the boss? As an experienced gamer, she couldn't imagine how a character with virtually no offensive power could challenge the boss alone. Kato Megumi, calm and skeptical, added, I don't think it's likely either. You'll see soon enough, Natsume replied, a slight curl at the corner of his mouth. Their doubts were natural, what ordinary players would think. But Natsume wasn't an ordinary player. He hadn't been conditioned to think only in terms of game mechanics, and that allowed room for unusual strategies. Noticing his smile, Doma Umaru frowned, trying to recall everything Natsume had said and Kade's behavior. She couldn't figure out what gave him such confidence, and curiosity began to gnaw at her. They chatted while they waited. Minutes passed, and people continuously entered the Poison Dragon maze, yet no sign of Kade. More than 20 minutes later, a girl appeared, wearing black leggings, armor highlighted with red lines, and carrying a black metal shield. How is this possible? She actually made it! Doma Umaru cried in disbelief. Chitanda's eyes widened. Amazing! Kato merely nodded. Without many words, the three recognized from the armor's style that the girl had cleared the maze. What they couldn't fathom was how she'd done it. As expected, every class has its own equipment set, Natsume murmured, staring at the outfit similar to his own. I did it! Honju Kade shouted as she emerged, locking eyes with Natsume and grinning, flashing a V sign. She spun once triumphantly, the skirt of her armor fluttering and revealing fair thighs. The black shield in her hand glinted with a dark metallic sheen. The red lines spread over it like veins, giving it a slightly gruesome look. "This is the only equipment, and it's a set that matches yours, Yuu?" Kade said, practically vibrating with excitement at the matching black and red coat. "Congratulations," Natsume said, smiling at her puppy-like enthusiasm. Kade's grin grew smug. "Want to know how I beat it?" Doma Umaru blurted out. "You, I want to know." Her mind was a tangle. She prided herself on her gaming skill and rarely met a worthy opponent, yet she couldn't imagine how a low-attack character could defeat the boss. Kato tilted her head. "I'm curious, too." "So am I," Chitanda chimed in. "All right, I'll show you," Natsume said. "Find some monsters, try out the equipment, and I'll cover for you a little." Kade whooped and took the lead. They walked a short distance under her eager guidance and entered an open area where ladybug-like creatures, each slightly larger than a coconut, fluttered and clung to branches. "Watch closely," Kade called, then dashed toward the cluster of monsters. Several of the exploding ladybugs took to the air and flew straight toward her. "If I eat one of these, I should become resistant to explosions," she announced cheerfully, loud enough that the three watching in the broadcast room could hear. "Eat it?" Doma Umaru's mind conjured an absurd image. Kaide planted the crescent-shaped dagger at her waist in front of her and whispered, "Paralyzing roar." She drew the blade with a metallic whisper, clang, and a soft hum sounded as the blade slipped from its scabbard. Yellow lightning burst from the weapon, racing outward with incredible speed. The flying ladybugs had their wings frozen mid-flap and fell like hail. Kade raised her black shield above her head, and the impacts thudded against it. In the status display beneath their health bars, a yellow lightning icon flickered. The monsters were clearly affected, entering a stiffened, paralyzed state. "You, isn't that cool?" Kade beamed, lowering her shield to show off. "Yeah," Natsume said as he approached. He saw her place the shield on the ground, then stoop to pick up one of the stunned ladybugs. After studying it for a moment, Kade closed her eyes, bared small tiger-like teeth, and bit down on the exploding ladybug. How should I put it? Natsume Yuu had expected it, but seeing it for real still felt strange in his chest. "It's actually real!" Doma Umaru blurted, her mouth twitching with disbelief. "Even if it's a game, the fact she can stomach that is impressive," Kato Megumi said. Normally composed, Megumi showed a flicker of disturbance. A girl who could eat bugs was something none of them had ever seen in person. Even knowing it was just data, very few could bring themselves to do it. As expected from someone who grew up with you, Chitanda Eru added, nodding enthusiastically. "She's remarkable." "It feels a little like popping candy," Honju Kaide said, eyes bright as she chewed. When the tiny exploding ladybug detonated in her mouth, she opened her eyes and explained, eating monsters increases the corresponding resistances. I just ate a poison dragon, and my poison resistance even evolved into an attack skill. Come eat one too." Natsume Yuu shook his head and sat down beside her. "I don't need to. I prefer dodging attacks." It wasn't fear. He simply had no need to eat monsters to gain skills. "Really? Then I'll eat it myself. Once you get used to it, it's actually pretty interesting." She picked up another ladybug and popped it into her mouth. Her cheeks puffed as she chewed. Faint little explosions echoed. When the temporary paralysis from the bugs wore off, she raised her new moon shield and used paralyzing roar again, freezing the monsters so they could only become her food. "Watching her eat, I actually feel like trying it," Chitanda admitted. "I can understand that," Megumi agreed. "The way skills are acquired in this game is really strange," Umaru exclaimed. As Honju Kaide swallowed one exploding ladybug after another, the three in the chat group gradually got used to watching. Natsume Yuu sat quietly beside her, occasionally chatting while he watched her eat with gusto. After more than 10 minutes, when she popped the 47th exploding ladybug into her mouth, she froze mid-chew. "I finally got a new skill. Let's see. Gluttony, exploding eater." Her face lit up as she read the skill description. The new skill I got is so strong. Are you really not going to try it?" She glanced at him happily and then attached gluttony to her shield casually. "No, thanks," he said again, refusing. Shiramin Risa, whatever pride she held, wouldn't take the same path Honju Kaide had, so he wouldn't either. "Okay, then let's keep leveling up." Kade said, jumping up with enthusiasm. The novelty of her new equipment still thrilled her. Natsume Yuu rose as well. Taunt! Honju Kade used the taunt to gather the respawned monsters not far away. Natsume Yuu drew his long blade and sprinted, leaving a black afterimage behind him. Every monster he passed had its health bar plummet. As he leveled up more, his attack power climbed. Monsters lasted shorter under his onslaught. Poison Dragon! Kade shouted, pointing her short blade at the sky. A purple poison dragon roared into being and charged through the clustered foes, its spreading purple mist corroding the surrounding plants. Monsters disappeared in waves. One is flexible and skilled, the other has super high defense and decent offense, Umaru remarked. With those two in tomorrow's event, do others even stand a chance? Watching the two rampage, Umaru thought seriously. She hadn't seen many players with such abilities. Natsume Yuu's near-superhuman skill and Kade's unconventional approach were both paths hard to replicate. Although it sounds odd to say, I'm actually looking forward to tomorrow night's event, Megumi admitted. I'm so curious what the other players will do. Chitanda chimed in, unable to hide her excitement. Their exaggerated leveling drew attention from passing players, but the poison cloud kept most at a distance. From afar, people could only make out one figure constantly using skills to pull monsters, the other a shadowy blur racing through them. So strong. There are two such powerful players in this game. Tomorrow will be amazing. I wonder how they compare to Flame Emperor, Pei Yin, and the others. Probably not the same. Those are top players. Pei Yin is the highest level player. His gear must be incredible. As the crowd buzzed, the two players paid them little heed. After clearing the area, they moved on to other regions. It wasn't until after 10:30 p.m. that they returned to town, said their goodbyes, and logged off. Videos of their leveling session were uploaded online. It looks like I need to train harder, muttered a player with short golden hair, bright silver armor, and a blue cape, sounding like something out of a heroic tale. Where he had intended to log off, he instead dove back into the fray. Is this equipment his? Mii asked, recognizing the style of one of the outfits from the person she'd met at the dessert shop. She, too, put off logging off and kept leveling. The same reaction, renewed determination to train, spread among many players. Those who'd felt confident suddenly worked desperately, as if competing. Chapter 48, First Meeting. As a currently popular game, Natsume Yuu knew many classmates were talking about it avidly. Everyone seemed to be anticipating the evening event. The waiting made time drag. The day crawled by for the three members of the chat group. Their gaming gear was due to arrive that evening, and then they could finally play together. More importantly, it would be their first meeting, even if only inside the game. Chapter 47, Section 47. Even a small thing was enough to set their hearts racing. The day passed quietly until evening, when a doorbell rang downstairs. Hello? Anyone home? Delivery. Natsume Yuu, who had finished his homework and was reading at his desk, closed the book and put it back on the shelf. The title, Laozi's Yellow Court Classic, peered out among other volumes. Treatise on Sitting and Forgetting, Heart Seal Sutra, Chapters on Awakening to Reality. One moment, please. He stood, leaned to the window, and called down to the delivery man in a uniform with the courier company's logo. Then he went to the door, signed for the package, and murmured a polite thanks as the courier walked back to his van and drove off. Natsume Yuu uploaded device X4. Natsume Yuu uploaded game, New World Online. In the group chat, voices erupted almost at once. Domer, it's here! It's here! You're amazing, Yuu, so we're really meeting soon. Now that you mention it, this feels like gamers finally meeting offline. Too bad Kanai's busy, otherwise we all could have come. There's nothing to be done. She's tied up with something important. You three make your characters first. I'll log in after dinner. You're going to cook when we're about to meet. A hot meal's more important. Your family needs it. Katominix you. Natsume closed the chat after that. He'd shown them how to install the game on his last livestream. With Umaru around, he trusted they wouldn't have trouble. He went on to prepare dinner as usual. When Natsume Reiko came home, they ate together, and he watched her practice the breathing technique for a while. Then he went upstairs, put on the virtual game device, lay back on the bed, and whispered, "Link start." The world shifted with a soft hiss. He reappeared in the game's town, which was busier than usual. An event was due to start, and the square was buzzing with people and login flashes. That armor set? Could that be the person from last night? But that gear looks for a katana user, and the other person was a great shield class. Same equipment type? So cool. Did you see? 3 pretty girls just went over to him. Wow, so many people. Natsume's strange new gear drew envious eyes, but he ignored them and checked his friends list. Maple wasn't online yet. The event didn't start until 9, so there was no hurry. 3 friend request notifications popped up at once. UMR requested to add you as a friend. MGM requested to add you as a friend. Eru requested to add you as a friend. He accepted them all. From the names he could tell who they were. UMR had to be Doma Umaru, MGM her transliterated Megumi, and Eru was Chitanda Eru. A message from Umaru came immediately. "You, we're outside the town. Come over?" She attached a screenshot, 3 avatars in plain linen beginner outfits and wielding starter katanas. The clothes looked simple, but on Eru and Umaru they lent a certain heroic grace. Megumi's avatar wasn't showy, but the more he looked, the more refined and composed she seemed, quietly beautiful, not flashy. All 3 wore slightly shy smiles, the kind people get when online banter meets real faces. "I'll be right there," Natsume typed, then sprinted out of the town and through the trees until he found them. They were fighting a low-level rabbit-like monster. Their attacks were clumsy and awkward, typical for players who'd never been in a virtual game before. The way they swung their katanas looked almost like a practice stance rather than normal input. Hints of proper technique, but their characters' stats and weapon proficiency weren't high enough to pull it off cleanly. The result was odd postures and missed timing, a mix of real skill and inexperience. Even so, the monster's health dropped quickly and it died. The 3 of them breathed a collective sigh of relief. "Phew, can you believe this? I, UMR, have to work this hard," Umaru muttered, but she was grinning, excited despite the struggle. She'd always been competitive in the arcade. Fighting a beginner monster felt strangely challenging now. Chapter 48, Section 48. If word got out, it would make them insanely jealous. After all, these people couldn't even play if they wanted to. You're here." Kato Megumi let out a small cry beside her. Chitanda Eru and Doma Umaru followed her gaze and saw Natsume Yuu not far away. His handsome face and light purple eyes seemed to take in everything at once. The black and red coat gave him a few more sharp edges. "Megumi, Xiaomai, Eru, so we finally meet." Natsume walked toward the 3 with a faint smile. Chapter 49. The event begins. "Good evening. I didn't expect to meet so soon. What a surprise." Chitanda Eru approached Natsume Yuu with an inquisitive smile. A few days ago, she had known she'd encountered something unusual, but the idea of a cross-world meeting still felt hard to believe. Now, with Natsume Yuu in their group, everything had changed. Futures appearing in other worlds, the possibility of gaining supernatural powers. Even if for now it was just in the game, meeting across worlds made Chitanda think it could someday be real. "You've worked hard," Kato Megumi smiled faintly. She'd been with Doma Umaru and the others for a while, but excitement still fluttered in her chest. It all felt slightly unreal. "When did you get here, Yuu?" Doma Umaru asked, curious. She had been busy dealing with a few wild monsters moments ago and hadn't noticed when he arrived. "Not long after the fight started." Natsume Yuu nodded at the 3. "Didn't you see?" Doma's cheeks puffed in embarrassment at the thought of the awkward scene he'd seen her in. Kato Megumi and Chitanda didn't mind. One considered herself ordinary, the other had no concept of games, so they weren't bothered at all. "You haven't played a game like this before, so it's normal," Natsume said. "It'll get easier once you get used to it." "You didn't even give me a comforting compliment?" Doma lowered her head as if struck. It's okay. Chitanda hurried over, stroking Doma's golden hair to soothe her. "I'm not a child," Doma snapped, glancing at Chitanda's hand. "Sorry." Chitanda hastily withdrew and covered her mouth, apologizing exaggeratedly. Their playful bickering loosened the atmosphere. Natsume and Megumi exchanged looks. Perhaps Doma had been trying to ease the awkwardness on purpose. After all, no matter how familiar they'd been online, meeting face to face for the first time would naturally be a little strange. If I may praise you, your progress with the breathing technique is good. Natsume's gaze swept over the three. Using the breathing technique in the game didn't boost physical strength, but they all understood they weren't playing a typical game. They were practicing. That was why they'd been able to switch to the basic breathing forms just now. From the recent battle, Natsume had observed their approaches. Although their physical strength hadn't yet matched the technique, each showed tendencies that matched their personalities. Megumi's breathing was light and ethereal, Chitanda's sometimes long and drawn out, other times quick and wild. Doma's heavy and forceful. The changes were subtle, so much that even they might not notice them. Hey, of course, I Xiao Mai am a perfectly beautiful girl. Doma's face swelled with pride, and she struck a dramatic pose. Does wearing a hamster costume count as part of that? Megumi raised an eyebrow, surprised. Doma sank into a sulk when she remembered everyone here knew about her costume. Natsume made a soft sound. What's wrong? Chitanda, ever sensitive, heard it and asked. Honjo Kade is online. She's asking where I am, Natsume said plainly. Just in time to go back. The event is about to start, he continued. Do you want to practice here or go back to watch it? They had only just begun exploring the game. There were probably many things they wanted to try. Still, Megumi and Chitanda exchanged looks and made their decisions quickly. I want to go back. I can meet Yu's friends, too. Megumi raised her hand decisively. Me too. There'll be plenty of time to practice later. We shouldn't miss the event. Chitanda agreed. Doma wanted to keep fighting. She'd been itching to go on a rampage, but she thought better of it. As the others had said, it was better to get to know Yu's friends first. All right, let's go. Natsume opened the message bar. Wait by the fountain. I'll bring some friends over. Friends? Honju Kade, perched on the edge of the fountain in the square, tilted her head as her hair swayed. She knew most of Natsume Yu's usual companions, Shiramine Risa and herself among them, but she'd never realized he had other friends. Could he have met them in the game? A soft warmth stirred in Hanju's chest. She had always worried about Yu. His health wasn't great, and with his looks and grades, it was hard for him to make friends at school. Seeing him make friends so quickly in the game unexpectedly moved her. Time passed quietly, and the square grew more crowded. Maple. A hand tapped Honju Kade's shoulder, pulling her out of her thoughts. You? The familiar voice snapped her back, and she turned to look at the newcomers with confusion. Chapter 49, Section 49. Why are all of Natsume Yu's friends girls? And such beautiful girls, too. Who is that guy? He actually gets to team up with so many gorgeous players. Damn it, that lucky normal player. They're even wearing matching outfits. Are they trying to show off? Isn't he that player from the videos? Powerful, and with 4 beautiful girls. Unbelievable. The murmurs finally reached Honju Kade and snapped her out of her shock. Gao. A cute, high-pitched roar sounded from above. A plush-like red dragon spread its wings in the air. The first event of New World Online is about to begin. The little dragon's sudden appearance drew everyone's attention. Players craned their necks to watch as the toy-like red dragon circled lazily, announcing the event rules. Time limit, 3 hours. Venue, event-specific map. By the way, I'm the game's mascot, Dragon Treasure. Nice to meet players seeing me for the first time. The red dragon bowed slightly. Then the countdown begins. 3. As it spoke, a countdown timer appeared around the dragon. The adventurers gathered in the square grinned with anticipation. The air thrummed with excitement. Their fighting spirits rose with each number. 3 hours, huh? I'll try to finish as fast as I can. Natsume Yuu glanced at Kato Megumi and the others. No sooner had he finished speaking than his form pixelated into blue blocks and vanished. Like him, many players disappeared at once. The crowded square emptied in an instant, replaced by a row of observation screens suspended above the plaza, perspectives of each participant for those who had chosen not to enter the event. It's a pity we came in too late, Doma Umaru muttered regretfully. As a fan of the game, she had wanted to take part in such a major event. Even without using skills, they're still so much stronger than us. Kato Megumi sat on a stump at the edge of the square and looked up quietly. They'd logged in mainly to practice combat and sword work, intentionally avoiding game skills. After all, skills in the game couldn't be used in the real world. Quick, sit down, it's about to start. Chitanda Eru hopped over and settled beside Megumi, visibly excited. Doma Umaru, who had been downcast, hurried to join them and watch. Is it a solo event? Doma Umaru asked, eyeing the screens where players appeared alone after switching perspectives. Look, Natsume Yuu's on there, Chitanda Eru cried, then remembered they were in a public place. She glanced around, offered a sheepish nod to nearby players, and put her hands over her mouth. She sat with her legs together on the stump, her lively purple eyes shining. Kato Megumi and the rest smiled faintly and turned their attention back to the screen. Natsume Yuu, wearing a black coat, stood on a forest path. I don't have to worry about Maple, so I'll act freely, he murmured, hands hanging by his sides. His heart quickened as the battle began. A faint smile tugged at his lips. His light purple eyes burned with focus. Fireball spell! A basketball-sized fireball shot out from the dense trees behind him. Swish! A flicker of moonlight cut through the undergrowth nearby. An assassin in simple leather armor, twin blades in hand, leaped from the grass. Heavy blow. Fluorescent light flared along the assassin's blades. He'd activated a skill. The moment he sprang, Natsume Yuu twisted his footwork and, with even greater speed, dodged the fireball and appeared in front of the assassin. A moon-shaped streak, his moon shadow, traced upward with a chilling silver blade flash. The assassin, barely a beat slower in reaction, seemed to barrel straight into the attack. A huge chunk of his health bar vanished at once. The scabbard in his left hand followed instantly and struck. What little health remained was gone. The two hits landed in the space of a heartbeat, so narrow a lesser game might not even have calculated it. Is that double dragon flash? Doma Umaru cried out when the camera zoomed on the scabbard Natsume Yuu had used. Double dragon flash? Chitanda asked, eyes bright with curiosity. Megumi looked puzzled as well. Doma Umaru launched into an explanation before they could ask. It's a move from a manga, the blade attack first, then the scabbard follows up. Amazing, someone nearby breathed. He actually dodged the skill. That's the guy who was surrounded by wild monsters the other day. This is going to be a great event, voices rose in excitement. On the screen, Natsume Yuu moved toward the direction the fireball had come from. The player there didn't wait passively, he kept casting fireballs and wind blades. Natsume Yuu dodged them with ease. Within seconds, the skill-using player, retreating as he fired, was chased down. Natsume Yuu planted a foot and the ground pressed down slightly. In the same instant, his form blurred into lightning and shot forward. I'll go for it! The other player gritted his teeth and launched one final attack before Natsume Yuu reached him. At the last moment, Natsume Yuu dropped his body low, sliding forward under the fireball's arc. Twisting his waist, he slashed horizontally with his long sword, leaving a long wound across the player's abdomen as purple damage blocks popped up. Natsume Yuu had already slid behind him. He reversed his grip on the sword and drove the tip backward through the narrow opening at the player's waist, piercing the heart before the man could react. Second one. 4 consecutive hits, Natsume Yuu murmured as he rose and sheathed his moon shadow. Section 50. The player behind him dissolved into purple cubes and logged out. Natsume Yuu glanced at the combo counter. It reset every 30 seconds, and grinned. He crouched for a moment and then shot forward like lightning, keeping his combo alive for the sheer fun of it. The hem of his black and red coat whipped in the wind. Moon Shadow was strapped to his back, ready to be drawn. His pale lavender eyes burned with a quiet intensity. The whole scene was being broadcast live by Red Dragon. So cool. What just happened? Did I just get one shot? I've never seen a fighting style like that. Did someone change stances? He killed 2 players without using a single skill. His attack speed is insane. After cutting down 2 players like a storm, the crowd went silent in disbelief. If he had used flashy skills, viewers might have expected it. But everyone could see from the start, he wasn't using skills at all, just basic attacks, and at a terrifying frequency. One strike flowed into the next with no break. There was no time to react or dodge. Kato Megumi and the others listened to the murmurs and shared a glance, pride flickering across their faces. The corners of their mouths lifted. Chapter 51, The Rampaging Demon King. They hadn't been surprised enough yet. At full speed, Natsume Yuu streaked through the forest like a black and red bolt. He didn't dodge a soul. He plowed straight through any number of players, and the act of passing them was itself an onslaught. Players dissolved under his blade. With every heartbeat, it felt like his rate of killing accelerated. Even when the broadcast cut to the victims' perspectives, all anyone could see was a blur of black and red lightning rushing at them before the camera jumped elsewhere. Is his attack stat rising mid-fight? Is there a buff that keeps boosting his attack speed? Fast and strong, unless it's an AoE or he's completely surrounded, we can't stop him. He's basically a demon king. Then someone spotted another camera angle and the chatter shifted. Huh? That girl's gear is the same as his. Why isn't she out looking for fights? She's just drawing? What a cute shield girl. High on a ruined tower, a girl in similar black and red armor crouched, idly sketching on the ground with a twig. She hummed a little tune, as if sightseeing. Doma Umaru looked at Hanju Keide's relaxed posture and couldn't help but admire her nerve. She's got some thick skin, he murmured. Someone's coming. Chitanda Eru said, tension showing in her voice as 3 burly players appeared at the tower entrance. Kato Megumi stayed calm. If Natsume hadn't rushed over to help, he must trust them to handle things. Given how the girl had been playing before, she might do something unexpected and powerful. The 3 burly men charged in a line and swung their weapons. Hanju Keide, who hadn't even had time to raise her shield, blinked once. Heh! She made a soft noise, tapped the biggest attacker lightly with her shield, and whispered, Gluttony. The man vanished, and a red crystal materialized on her black and red shield. The other 2 charged. Their hits struck the shield but barely hurt her. She touched each of them and dispatched them just as easily. Then she sat back down and resumed drawing, as nonchalant as ever. Realizing she wasn't an easy target, a group of players banded together and launched a coordinated assault. Spells and physical strikes failed to dent her. Melee classes that slammed into her were simply absorbed. Close-range engagements played right into her hands. More red crystals bloomed across her shield after each kill. She stood up slowly and drew her short sword a few inches, then snapped it shut. Yellow lightning curled out and spread with blistering speed. Warriors, assassins, mages, and archers alike were seized by paralysis and crumpled to the ground. A smile brightened her face as she raised the shield. Poison dragon. All the red crystals on the shield flared and were consumed. A colossal purple dragon, dripping with venom, burst into the sky with a deafening roar and plunged down like a tidal wave. It enveloped the area around Hanju Keide, and paralyzed players watched in horror as their HP bars bled away under the poison. They dropped out of the event, one after another. Back in the central plaza, new players kept appearing on screen in rapid succession. The sheer brutality of her defense left the crowd speechless. As expected of someone allied with the Black Demon King, someone murmured, and heads nodded in agreement. Yeah, just like Natsume, Doma Umaru added, but this time the meaning carried a heavier respect. The camera shifted again, and Natsume Yuu reappeared, this time facing dozens, maybe hundreds of players. They wore a chaotic mix of gear, their emblems marking them as members of various guilds and scattered soloists. The battlefield had just grown a lot more crowded. Chapter 51. The outcry was a single, collective rage born of a massacre. The decision was unanimous. Take him out of the arena first. Charge! It was a game, so there was no need for trash talk, only a roar and then an all-out assault. Fireballs, tornadoes, ice arrows, and regular arrows shredded the air. Natsume Yuu's pale purple eyes reflected the swarm of attacks. Though they had been launched almost simultaneously, they weren't automated scripts. Each was manually aimed. They couldn't be perfectly identical. It was that tiny difference that Natsume Yuu saw and seized. Instead of retreating, he stepped forward. A crimson-black afterimage trailed him as he braided his way through the storm of spells and bolts, like passing through a garden without a single petal sticking to him. Watching from the stands, where people had a bird's-eye view, the gap between projectile and player was terrifyingly small, but those microscopic differences kept the attacks from landing. A miss was as good as a mile. That instant of evasion let him close the distance. With ranged attacks neutralized and the event's lack of friendly fire prevention irrelevant, someone finally reacted. Quick, use the screen. Great shield. Taunt him. A frontline great shield focused on Natsume Yuu and began the chant. But when the skills casting finished, Natsume Yuu had vanished and a prompt blinked in front of the shield player. Skill must be targeted on an enemy unit. Damn it, he's too fast, the great shield yelled, but then a long blade flashed into his vision. Behind it were a pair of light purple eyes, and in their depths small flames danced as if the wielder enjoyed the fight. The next moment, the great shield flickered into a purple cube. 59. 70 consecutive hits. The numbers hung in the air as the only thing the semi-teleported shield player caught before death. Natsume Yuu's combo meter climbed, and at this point his damage output alone could instantly kill a shield class. Chapter 52. The Shocked Audience. A level 20 great shield instantly killed, someone who knew the class exclaimed. The players nearby exchanged stunned looks. A great shield of that level, whether optimized for defense or HP, shouldn't fall so quickly. But the man before them had done it in one strike. This was the black lightning they'd feared from the start. Back row, drop your barriers. Crowd control, use everything, another voice shouted. If single target attacks couldn't reach him, maybe area of effect skills could. If they could just stun or root him once, someone who'd likely pumped speed and strength wouldn't hold for long. Skills flared. The frontline Great Shield kept spamming taunts and other crowd control abilities, eyes locked on Natsume Yuu. He crouched among the melee, then slammed his foot into the ground. He shot forward parallel to the earth, disappearing from the back row's sight. Spells and effects hammered the players around where he'd been, but in an instant, Natsume Yuu was beside a great shield. The shield's huge face blocked the view of players in front. The taunt missed. Before the shield bearer could even react, Natsume planted his free hand on the ground to stop his forward momentum. His body coiled, limbs folding like a spring, then inverted and launched two souls straight at the great shield's face. Huh? The shield bearer had only just moved his defense aside, and then a pair of feet were kicking at him. Natsume maintained a ridiculous combo count. Even blows with bare fists and feet hit like weapons. The great shield was sent flying. For a heartbeat, everyone watched the body arc through the air. Natsume used the recoil to adjust and land cleanly, then turned his gaze to the now exposed middle and back ranks. He crouched like a leopard, then launched again, black lightning streaking forward. The moon shadow flashed like a grim reaper's scythe wherever he passed. Health bars evaporated. Purple cubes rose into the sky. Being in the crush made it easier for him in a way. Many area skills either missed or struck their own teammates. Someone screamed for everyone to spread out, but a second later Natsume appeared at their side and they were gone. Observers in the stands watched a streak of crimson-black lightning tear through the crowd, followed by player after player falling. Light flowed across the plaza like rain, illuminating faces full of either panic or disbelief. Those who had been following the match were left speechless. This wasn't one person surrounded and overwhelmed, it was one person cutting down hundreds. If they could rationalize the earlier Great Shield Girl's death as a product of gear and skills, this was different. Natsume Yuu hadn't displayed any visible skills at all, yet he was unstoppable. Chapter 52, Section 52, a player who had cleared a 100-person lineup using nothing but normal attacks and positioning. It was almost impossible for them to accept. Doma Umaru and the others who already knew Natsume Yuu was strong were stunned now more than ever. Kanai, the butterfly, broke the silence. This technique is something else. Her sudden comment snapped Kato Megumi and the others out of their shock. A short while ago, Kanai had asked them to start a live stream because she wanted to watch Natsume Yuu fight. Doma Umaru had volunteered to go live, so Kane had seen the slaughter clearly. With her physical fitness, dealing with over 100 ordinary players would be easy. But against a Demon Slayer Corp swordsman who used a breathing technique, it would be much harder. At least she wouldn't be able to avoid taking a hit. Every one of Yuu's attacks was simple, direct, and his movements blocked most players' sightlines. His understanding of combat had already gone far beyond theirs. Yuu, amazing. Chitanda Eru stared at the screen, voice barely above a whisper. Megumi's composed gaze showed the first ripples of interest. Her slight tremor mirrored Yu's attacks as she immersed herself in the fight, picturing herself on that battlefield, how she would counter, how she would evade. If I activated the mark and transparent world in real life, what would it feel like? Could I do this too? Doma Umaru gripped the sword sheath in her lap and murmured to herself, even if it's just a game, this is ridiculous. On the plaza, players erupted into a chorus of accusations. Are those two guys hacking? How can such players exist? I accepted the shield girl before, but this guy's defying logic. He's too slippery. Skills can't land on him at all. If I team up next time, I'll beat him. The game administrators in their doll avatars watched the proceedings closely. Hey, are his stats really clean? One asked a colleague. If he was hacking it, would be easy to deal with, but the data shows he isn't. The admin checking the logs replied, disbelief written on his face. Good. As long as he's not cheating, what are we panicking about? Another admin said, quickly turning excited. A player who doesn't spend money or grind this hard and still reaches that level. If we release this footage, it could draw a ton of players. This event was supposed to run 3 hours, and it's only been open for less than half an hour. Their worry shifted to business. The event had accelerated far faster than planned, and nearly half the participants had already been eliminated. Still, it was great publicity. Also, let Longzhang notify the players. Okay, Gawu. The Red Dragon's cry rippled through the square, drawing everyone's attention. Longzhang announced across the plaza that the official inspection had cleared the player. He had not used third-party plugins. Because they hadn't been able to contact Natsume Yuu, the announcement didn't include his character name. How is that possible? Murmurs turned to incredulous chatter. Unbelievable. Is he a real-life super soldier? That's the only explanation. Back on the event map, the one-sided massacre didn't last much longer. After piercing a great shield-class player with a single strike, Natsume Yuu straightened and sheathed his sword. The purple cubes that marked the fallen rose one by one. Gawu! Longzhang materialized beside Natsume Yuu. Due to the unexpected acceleration of the game, the map scheduled to open in 1 hour will open early. The locations of the top 3 scorers will now be displayed. What's my ranking? Yuu asked, already aware of how fast things had moved. The current rankings are Yuu 1, Pei Yin 2, Juade 3. No Hanjo Kade on the list. Well, that makes sense. Without movement speed, she wouldn't outrank someone like Juade who plays aggressively. Yuu nodded and moved on. Glancing at his rapidly decreasing combo count, he didn't hesitate. He opened the map, found Juade's location relatively close, and charged toward it. The red dragon disappeared. Oh dear, is he coming straight for me? Perched on a stone pillar ahead, Juade made an annoyed sound as the red dot for Natsume Yuu closed in. It was obvious Yuu had picked him as a target. Chapter 53, Slaughter. The spectators outside the arena watched Yuu head for the third-ranked player and wondered aloud, why isn't he just continuing the random kills? Why go after the third place? Some noted that killing players along the way would be less efficient than the previous slaughter. Is he going for the third-place score? Someone asked. Taking Juade out would bump his points considerably. Others hesitated, remembering Guede's reputation. Guede's a top player in other games, not a pay-to-win, but skill-based. Targeting him is risky. It seems unwise, another said, puzzled. The players nearby nodded in agreement. Chapter 53, Section 53. They all agreed that dealing with experts was troublesome and dangerous. It was far safer to kill ordinary players. That way they could keep their leading positions. Who knows? Maybe he wants to spar, someone offered. That's true. Experts think differently from us, another replied. But we'll get a great show, a third added. Despite the heated discussion, the confusion in everyone's hearts didn't vanish. If anything, their anticipation grew. The administrators, watching the players' reactions, breathed a quiet sigh of relief when they saw the excitement hadn't died down. At the same time, they were puzzled. Why did Natsume Yuu do this? One murmured. He could have run the usual way and been far ahead. Why go after that somewhat dangerous player? I'm really curious, another said. Hearing the chatter around them, Chitanda Eru turned toward the 2 people beside her. She propped her hands on the tree stump and leaned toward Doma Umaru, curiosity shining in her purple eyes. Natsume Yuu is so strong. Maybe he doesn't want to just pick on ordinary players? Being fixed with those clear, childlike eyes made Doma Umaru smile helplessly. She already had an idea of what Chitanda was getting at, so she offered the simplest explanation she could. So that's it. Chitanda sat bolt upright and clapped her hands in sudden realization. I'm so gullible. Doma felt relieved. The explanation wasn't guaranteed to be accurate. No one but Natsume Yuu could know his thoughts, but it was believable to Chitanda. More than truth, what Chitanda needed was an answer she could accept. It wasn't a random guess either. It was what UMR, the arcade's undefeated top player, preferred. For UMR, it was better to compete with experts, especially under the curious gaze of many onlookers. Under many pairs of watching eyes, Natsume Yuu arrived at Juade's position. To everyone's surprise, Juade didn't flee. So it's you, he said. He raised a hand in greeting instead of immediately attacking. He and Natsume Yuu had met in many matches before, and Juade had sparred with him often, never once beating him. He'd recognized Natsume Yuu from the video posted on the forum earlier and had braced himself for this encounter. Natsume Yuu replied with a slight nod. Then he drew Moon Shadow and assumed a fighting stance. He had to keep his combo count, so there wasn't time for much small talk. He's so cold, Guade clicked his tongue in displeasure at the curt response. He shrugged it off. He wasn't the type to talk when he could act. Gripping his twin crescent blades, he lowered his stance slightly. The grass rustled nearby, and a figure sprang out. A woman with flowing black hair and a bright kimono stepped into view, a sword with a red scabbard at her hip. Sorry for interrupting your fight, she said, meeting their eyes with a steady gaze. I won't join your fight, but please fight me afterward. Her eyes went straight to Natsume Yuu, voice sincere. Jue, already annoyed, grew even more so. That sounded like an admission that Natsume Yuu would win, true, but infuriating. All right, Natsume Yuu answered without looking at her. He recognized her as Kasumi, one of the guild members who, in the original story, joined Honjo Keide's guild. Thank you, Kasumi said, smiling with bright gratitude, bowing politely. Starting now, Juede warned, and then shouted the skill chant. Super acceleration. Before he finished the words, Juede's body shimmered with a faint glow, and he shot forward like an arrow loosed from a bow. He moved so fast his figure blurred into a green afterimage. Natsume Yuu's expression stayed calm. His pale purple eyes tracked Juede's motion. The placement of Juede's feet, the flex of his muscles, the direction of his gaze, Natsume read them all and knew where the attack would come from. Behind, he thought. Just as Juede closed in, he planted his feet and swung his momentum in a wide arc to the side, sweeping around behind Natsume Yuu. He hadn't even finished his maneuver when Natsume took a step forward, twisted his waist, and spun. Like a turning spear, the tip of his long sword thrust out. Sunlight flashed along the blade as it slid between Juede and his guard. By the time Juede stabilized, the long sword had already sunk into his chest. To any spectator, it looked as if Guede had walked right into Natsume Yuu's attack, almost like a staged collision. Your reaction is still so fast, Juede said with a bitter smile, staring at the sword lodged in his chest. He hadn't expected that even with super acceleration, he couldn't outmatch Natsume Yuu, who hadn't used any skills. His health bar emptied instantly, the wound dissolved into purple blocks. Juede died instantly. I was really looking forward to a top expert duel, but I can't believe even third place couldn't stop him. The first place is already decided in this event. He's just a demon king, black and red gear, in human strength. The name fits. Then doesn't that make Pei Yin our hero? Pei Yin's image does suit a hero. His stat points must be in speed and strength. He could handle the Flame Emperor's AoE attacks. If you don't have vitality stat points, you can't handle AoE. Then Flame Emperor might still have a chance. This event just keeps getting more exciting. The spectators outside watched Juade fall with rising excitement. Many called friends and urged them to log in quickly. The show was just getting started. If Natsume Yuu took down third place, then the second place, Pei Yin, might be next. Everyone waited with bated breath, curiosity blazing. Meanwhile, inside the arena, Natsume Yuu had no idea what was happening outside. He calmly summoned his moon shadow and turned his gaze to Kasumi beside him. Do you need to rest or recover health? He asked. Kasumi walked to where Guade had stood earlier and asked seriously. Though she knew she couldn't beat Natsume Yuu, She didn't want to take advantage of him. "No need," she replied. Natsume Yuu considered her for a moment. He treated this as a serious duel and respected her earnestness. "Be careful, I'll use my strongest move." Kasumi took a deep breath and drew her long blade. She lowered her waist, gripping the sword with both hands, one forward, one back, blade reversed, held horizontally at her side, level with her eyes. "Then I'm going in. Super acceleration," she shouted, and her figure blurred into a long afterimage. "Arc Moon." Halfway across the arena, Kasumi pushed her speed even higher, wordfulling. She closed the gap in an instant, her sharp eyes locked on Natsume Yuu. "The distance isn't enough." Alarmed, Kasumi swung the long blade in a wide horizontal arc. A crescent of light bloomed at waist level between them. Natsume Yuu twisted his feet and slid away in an arc, like Juede had done before. The blade skimmed past his abdomen. Close, but he slipped free. Because of her posture, Kasumi's blade lost momentum and stopped. In the same breath, Natsume Yuu materialized behind her. Moonshadow fell without hesitation. A long gash opened across Kasumi's back. "As expected, I need more training," she said softly, feeling the sting. "Thank you," she added, and then disappeared as quickly as before. In a single breath, the fight was over. Natsume Yuu said nothing and opened the map. "Is the third spot Maple now?" he muttered, glancing at the third name that had replaced Juade, Honju Keide. "Then it's time to find the second." He locked onto the second-place marker. He wanted to face that Liver King and Whale, and set off. As soon as he confirmed the location, he galloped away. The crowd erupted at the change in his avatar and the map the administrator had released. Excitement surged through the square. "That girl's eyes, she's a swordsman," Butterfly Kane murmured in the live broadcast room. "A swordsman doesn't go easy. Showing mercy is an insult." Doma Umaru and the others nodded. They understood Kanai's point. Natsume Yuu's ruthlessness wasn't cruelty, but respect. He dealt the fight a clean end. The commentators watched with interest. On the second floor of a ruin, now a ranked player, Maple had been enduring attacks from many challengers. "You, has he come over?" Honju Keide asked, ignoring a long axe that had struck her waist. She checked the map and pointed. "This direction. He's coming after second place." Glancing at another red dot, she brightened. "Then I'll work harder." Seeing Natsume Yuu already first and still pushing, Honju Keide felt reinvigorated. She closed the map and faced the burly man swinging his long axe. "Hey, gluttony." She raised her shield and leaped forward, activating a skill. When the attacker touched the shield, he was swallowed, turning into blocks that dissolved into nothing. Crystals on the shield flashed a wicked scarlet. "Poison dragon!" A purple poison dragon burst into the sky and coiled toward her enemy under her control. In moments, the platform was cleared. Honju Keide crouched and hummed as she drew in the dirt, glancing at the map occasionally. A few minutes later, she saw the red dot for Natsume Yuu overlap with the red dot for Pei Yin. "Oh, an unexpected bonus," she said, pouting. She wanted to watch Natsume Yuu show off so she could brag to Shirami Narisa tomorrow. Natsume Yuu stepped into view and scanned the two opponents facing him. Besides Pei Yin in silver-blue armor, there was also the Flame Emperor in a red cloak, Mi Yi. "It's him?" Mi Yi's eyes widened as she recognized his unique equipment. She had met him once before at a dessert shop, though she had been disguised then. "Your target is me, right?" Pei Yin asked, golden hair tousled, handsome face and gear making him look like a hero from another world. "It was originally," Pei Yin added, frowning when he saw Natsume Yuu, "but now there's one more." Natsume Yuu's light purple eyes swept over them. He didn't hide his intentions. The response made both of his foes bristle. "You want to take on two at once? You really underestimate me." Pei Yin spat, drawing his longsword as a faint glow washed over him. "Then, I don't mind taking your points." Mi's expression hardened. Flames leapt to her hands. Her meeting with Pei Yin had been unexpected. She hadn't planned to be involved, but with Natsume Yuu suddenly present, the tension ratcheted higher. "I don't care if it's 2-on-1 or a free-for-all," she said, voice grave. Chapter 55, Section 55. Pulling out his moonshadow, Natsume Yuu spoke calmly and charged straight ahead. Super acceleration. The moment Natsume moved, Pei Yin activated his own speed skill. His cape snapped behind him, his silhouette a blue-silver streak. With both accelerations engaged, they closed the distance in a single breath. Judgment Holy Sword. Pei Yin's silver longsword flared. After a brief charge, he brought it down in a heavy slash. The force whipped up a gust, rattling the hem of Natsume's coat. Natsume's pale purple eyes tracked the descending blade. He planted his foot and stepped forward on the diagonal. The silver sword slashed past his body. While Pei Yin's attack was still coming down, Natsume rotated the moon shadow from bottom to top, driving it to its peak. With a snap of his wrist, the blade flipped and slashed down in return. Two intersecting marks immediately formed across Pei Yin, virtual cut marks that showed the data blocks rising in his status display. Such raw power! Pei Yin stared as his HP bar shrank to a sliver. His equipment and level had taken a lot of investment. Most players' attacks barely dented his defenses. Yet in a single exchange, his health had been driven to critical. He thought of his combo count. It had dropped quite a bit when Natsume arrived. Against the top-tier Pei Yin, a surprise instant kill would have been unexpected. Flame Emperor. From a short distance, Mii's chant rolled out like a drumbeat. A sphere of searing flame rocketed toward the two combatants. Her level and gear made her a walking cannon. At that range, she could end them. Natsume had not healed, and Pei Yin's HP had already fallen more than half. They could not absorb that kind of damage. Natsume planted his feet and dashed out of the impact zone. Pei Yin, still under acceleration, reacted and moved as well. The infernal orb struck where they had been standing. Boom! The explosion cracked through the forest canopy. Shattered earth scattered in all directions. Black smoke and scorching heat thrust skyward. The blast drew the attention of other players nearby. When they checked the map and saw two overlapping red dots, dozens of players immediately surged toward the scene. It was an in-game event. Players were not afraid of death. Killing top players made for a good story. But the three at the center didn't care about the onlookers. Although it's a bit underhanded, I'm not going to give up either, Pei Yin said, smiling. He produced a glowing red bottle and uncorked it. Flame Spear. Mii hurled several fiery spears to interrupt him. The skill was fast, but Pei Yin's potion was faster. His finger flexed, the bottle burst open, and green light washed him as his emptied HP bar refilled. This was no ordinary potion. He raised his silver sword high at the same time. Demon-repelling sword. Sacred light flashed along the blade, and he swung. The incoming flame spears were cleaved apart. But from the corner of Pei Yin's eye, a black and red streak suddenly tore through the rising smoke and bore down on him. This is bad. Alarm flickered across his face. Judgment Holy Sword packed massive punch, but it needed a brief charge and left him stiff afterward. Under ordinary circumstances, that recovery time was negligible, but not against the speed Natsume was moving. Before Pei Yin could finish thinking, Natsume was already in front of him. Fifth form, Fig Peony. Natsume's footwork anchored him, and Moon Shadow flashed out. For an instant, a blossom seemed to open in the void, and 9 slashes bloomed across Pei Yin. Purple data blocks flew from each wound. His just refilled HP bar collapsed silently to 0. Pei Yin stared for a beat, stunned, then broke into a genuine grin. He'd actually recovered from the stiffness by the 4th slash, only to find Natsume had read that and landed the 5th slash on the hand gripping the longsword, interrupting the charge. The next cut clipped his leg, leaving no room to escape. His HP was gone, and the game hadn't even had time to teleport him out. "You're not bad," he said with a laugh as his avatar dissolved. It wasn't false praise. Natsume could tell Pei Yin had trained martial arts in real life. For a player from the mundane world, he was pretty decent. Decent, at least, for someone not living in the game. "Thanks. Next event, I hope we get the chance to fight again," Pei Yin added cheerfully before vanishing. Natsume watched him go, then turned his attention to Mii. During the exchange, she hadn't taken advantage of the opening. She was the guild leader and currently live streaming. She wasn't the type to press a cheap attack. That restraint matched her. "Come on." Her face remained serious. Flames writhed in her palms, warping the air above into visible heat shimmer. "Flame Emperor!" Her chant struck again. As Mii swung, another barrage of fireballs roared outward. Though the spell's range and power were significant, this second cast hadn't yet fully expanded when Natsume moved. Chapter 56. Quickly filling in the gaps in his head, Natsume Yuu accelerated again. He streaked forward like a slash of black and red lightning toward Mii. The flames ahead singed his cheeks but did no real damage. He slipped through them in an instant. "Explosion flame!" Mii cried out. Startled by his evasion, she fell back to create distance while activating a skill that boosted her flight speed and added a knockback effect. Her attacks hit hard, but she didn't have much HP. A few slashes from a strong opponent could finish even Pei Yin, who was half-tank class. Up close against a melee fighter, she was at a serious disadvantage. Still, facing Natsume Yuu's lightning-fast form, her strikes couldn't land. She only managed to delay him briefly before he was suddenly at her side. Natsume Yuu raised his longsword and brought it down in a brutal arc. As a mage, Mii's health bar collapsed immediately. "Next time, I definitely won't lose," she declared, chin lifted like a heroine refusing to yield. The stance and stubborn pride he'd seen earlier made Natsume Yuu smile slightly. Mii caught the smile and, bewildered, thought he was mocking her. Heat flared in her chest. Her crimson avatar eyes burned like coals as she glared at him. Before she could say more, her form dissolved and she vanished. "Is it over?" someone behind called. "Are we too late? Don't let him recover. Go! Get the kill! Whoever finishes him gets it." Shouts rose from the square as several assassins surged forward. Figures of more players crowded at the tree line in the forest. Natsume Yuu turned calmly. Moon Shadow, the blade in his hand, caught the light. Even though his score had already pulled far ahead after dealing with Pei Yin and Mii, he had no intention of showing mercy now that more had gathered. He sprang forward, feet barely touching the ground, cutting through the crowd like an arrow loosed from a bow. A fresh slaughter began. I didn't expect Pei Yin and Mii to fail. Who is this? If he's this strong, how have I never heard of him? He looks familiar, but I don't remember anyone who never uses skills in combat. Maybe it's that player called Yu. He used to at least use skills, but now he's completely inhuman. Has he turned from a monster into a demon lord? Who are you talking about? In PvP with similar adjustments, it splits into two classes, everyone else and him. That's exaggerated. Outside the square, some viewers recognized Natsume Yuu. Newcomers glanced around in confusion and asked questions while the veterans recalled the past in animated tones. Rookies stared at the screen in awe and a little envy. Behind a nearby house, a small red dango avatar squatted and covered its face with pudgy hands, soft sniffles escaping as big teardrops slid down. Its fiery red cloak lay in a heap on the ground. "You remember this?" came a voice, trailing off. Thinking back to Natsume Yuu's final smile made Mii shout in a fierce, high-pitched voice that didn't quite match the ferocity, more cute than intimidating. "Mii?" Someone outside seemed to hear and call back. The squatting dango jumped up in surprise and hastily smoothed its cloak as if dusting it off. "Cough, cough, it's Misery. I'm here." Walking out toward the others, Mii answered loudly, "You is amazing." Chitanda Eru's face lit up, her purple eyes sparkled. So that's what he meant by finishing quickly. Kato Megumi watched the fleeing players and remembered Natsume Yuu's words when the game began. They're not even on the same level. This kind of virtual reality game is perfect for you. Doma Umaru sighed with longing. She'd only played a little, but the dazzling world and the sense of adventure had already lured her in. The games she'd loved before seemed bland now. She resolved to work hard to keep up. As a flawless, pretty girl, she believed she could learn quickly, swordplay, breathing techniques, whatever it took. Butterfly Kanai murmured, "It's incredible to watch him like this." She thought of his slightly upturned mouth in the live stream, the faint smile he wore. After a bath and the day's fatigue washed away, she had watched and felt a rush of pity and tenderness. So young and yet plagued by an incurable disease. Still, he didn't despair. He kept going, doing as he pleased with the talent he had. Gratitude, envy, longing, all mixed together into a different, complicated affection. Doma Umaru blinked at Butterfly Kanai's words and felt the image reflect in her eyes. The Natsume in the game wasn't just the distant figure from stories. He was someone who bore pain quietly and kept going. "Maybe Yu likes the feeling of running free," Kato Megumi whispered. "That's why he spreads his stat points like this." Chitanda Eru didn't say much. She simply stared at the screen. With Pei Yin and Mii out of the picture, the newcomers had no hope of stopping Natsume Yuu's relentless onslaught. Chapter 57, Section 57. The momentum growing around him drew more players in. It felt like they were about to challenge a world boss, but under Natsume Yuya's stacked combo count, it was nothing more than a one-hit kill. The event ended even faster because of it. Gawu! Event end! The Red Dragon's cry echoed, then the announcement of the event's results rang across the sky. This event's ranking is as follows. Yu, first place. Maple, second place. With the Red Dragon's proclamation, the event officially finished. We will now begin interviews with the third place winner. Natsume Yuya ignored the rest of the announcer's voice and exhaled. He glanced at the exit button. Fortunately, there was no mandatory interview requirement. He chose to leave the event map. In a flash of light above the square, his figure appeared. A black and red coat, long boots, a longsword in his hand. Players who had just survived the massacre immediately recognized him. How did the first place winner get out so fast? Is something wrong with him? Did he skip the interview? Who would refuse the spotlight? Don't be so sure. Lots of people don't want to be famous. Yuya's arrival electrified the crowd. Many players had no interest in watching the baffling third-place player get interviewed either, so attention shifted to him. He scanned the crowd and spotted the people he'd sent out, Kasumi and the others, who greeted him with friendly smiles and nods. He returned their gestures. Only Mii's eyes burned with something close to resentment. Is that how she really is? Maybe I misread her before, Yu hilting his head, but he didn't dwell on it. He quickly found Doma Umaru and the others. They saw him, rose onto their toes, and waved. Sorry to keep you waiting, he said, walking toward them. Perhaps his earlier image still lingered. The players around them made way. You were amazing just now. Doma Umaru rushed over and praised him without holding back. Thanks, Yuya said with a chuckle. He nodded to Kato Megumi and Chitanda Eru. Kanai's watching too. Chitanda nodded and smiled. At that moment, Yuya opened their chat group and saw that Doma Umaru was live streaming. He joined the stream. On the screen were himself and his friends, and a viewer named Butterfly Kanai typed in, "You're very handsome, Yu." Thanks. Why are you online? He replied aloud. Butterfly Kanai, I heard about the event and got curious. Since Yu was showing off, I couldn't miss it. Glad I didn't disappoint. I've always believed in you. Her gentle, older sisterly smile carried a warmth that put people at ease. Doma Umaru asked, watching the interview screen, Yu, why did you come out so quickly? I wasn't interested in the interview, so I left, Yuya answered with a casual wave. Yu, it's your friend's turn for the interview. Chitanda called excitedly. Everyone looked up and saw Honju Kade standing on the stage, completely flushed. She gripped the hem of her dress with both hands, head bowed slightly, eyes darting around in embarrassment. She looked very uncomfortable in front of the crowd. She even bit her tongue in nervousness, which made her speech slurred and all the more endearing. Butterfly Kanai cooed, "Oh my, she's really a cute child," placing a hand against her cheek. Her gaze was soft, truly fond. Go, Kade! Chitanda cheered, hands clenched into little fists. As the daughter of a wealthy farming family, she understood how awkward these public moments could feel. Her first time at a gathering led by her father had felt the same. She's so nervous. Why didn't she withdraw? Kato Megumi asked Yuya curiously. Yuya smacked his palm lightly against his other hand as realization hit him. He probably hadn't told her she could opt out early. Kato Megumi suspected as much. He definitely did it on purpose, she said, smiling. Watching their easy rapport, a flicker of envy passed through Butterfly Kanai. She wanted to laugh and be carefree like them, but not yet. There was still work to do. She'd been watching closely for days, and Yuya's explanations about the breathing technique had broadened her understanding. The improved breathing technique they were planning, with the participation of all 5 pillars, was almost finished. Once completed, it would make them stronger and give them another method for dealing with demons. She glanced out the window and found the moon already high, a silver veil draping the earth. Xiao Mai, you should wrap up the broadcast. I need to get some rest, she typed. Thank you for hosting tonight. She had to spar and train with the other pillars tomorrow, and missing sleep wouldn't help. Doma Umaru shrugged. I didn't do much, just started the stream and sat here, she said. Kanai, good night, Kato Megumi and Chitanda Eru said together. Yuya nodded. He knew what Butterfly Kane was carrying and gently urged her to rest. I understand. Good night, everyone, Butterfly Kane replied, and then her name went dim as she signed off. The group turned back to watch the interview. The segment finally ended only after Honju Kade bit her tongue once more while standing in the square. But when she realized Natsume Yuu's interview hadn't appeared, Honju Kade understood immediately. Her bright eyes swept the square. Because of the earlier activity, and because three beautiful girls were clustered around Natsume Yuu, the space around him had opened up unusually. Honju Kade took a few quick, light steps and ran straight to him. Her small mouth opened, a couple of baby teeth showing as she tried her fiercest look. The attempt at ferocity only made her look even more adorable. What kind of companion to the Demon King is this? An angel, clearly. Doma Umaru and the others beside Natsume Yuu watched, visibly amused. Let me introduce you to some new friends, Natsume Yuu said with a smile as Honju Kade reached him. He reached out and patted her small head. Honju Kade, who had been bracing for a fight, melted at the gesture and turned her attention to the three girls around him. She had been curious earlier. Where had Yuu met them? The milky, fierce expression slid off her face. A few disappointed clicks and murmurs came from the crowd. They hadn't gotten the showdown they'd been hoping for. Natsume Yuu glanced at the onlookers and suggested, "There are too many people here. Let's go to that dessert shop. Consider it a celebration." "Yay!" Honju Kade shouted, throwing her hands up. Doma Umaru and the others exchanged glances. A dessert shop in the game. Was anything edible there? "Is it real dessert?" Chitanda Eru asked, curiosity written all over her face. "You'll see in a moment," Natsume Yuu replied, speaking in teasing tones reminiscent of the day they'd eaten together without going on live. The three girls, intrigued, fell in step behind him. "Super strong, and with several pretty girls around him," someone called. "So envious! Is this a gal game? Reality is a trash game. Human evolution happened without me." Some players watched longingly, wishing they could be in Yuu's place. Others discussed the recent battle, dissecting tactics to learn new skills. A few wandered off toward the wilderness to grind levels and prepare for future events. "It's so good," Doma Umaru exclaimed, covering her mouth and staring at the cake in front of her. Eating such a high-calorie treat late at night made her guilty even in the game, especially after she realized it wouldn't make her gain weight. The guilt deepened. Chitanda Eru gently took a forkful, closed her eyes, and savored it with an air of refined grace that made Honju Kade, watching, go slack-jawed. "I didn't expect to be able to eat something this delicious in-game," Honju Kade admitted, her bright eyes shining. "It's as good as any cake I've had." Kato Megumi had already eaten more than half of hers. The calm eyes beneath her bangs flickered with the smallest ripple of pleasure. After a few bites, Natsume Yuu introduced the girls. "These three are friends I met online, UMR, MGM, and Eru. Actually, there's one more, but she's tied up with something today and couldn't come," he added. Honju Kade's expression shifted in understanding. No wonder she hadn't known them. They were Yuu's online friends. "Hello, I'm Han, Maple," she said shyly, then smiled and added, "Pleasure to meet you." "Our ages are about the same, so don't worry," Doma Umaru said, her rough voice smoothing into something gentler. Her long flaxen hair fell to her waist, and that broad, perfect smile made her look like a dazzling beauty. The sudden change surprised Chitanda Eru and Kato Megumi. They'd only known her from the chat logs and expected her usual bluntness. Seeing her put on this different front made them slightly uneasy. "Oh!" Honju Kade was immediately taken, a flicker of starlight seeming to appear in her eyes. Natsume Yuu reached up to ruffle her hair and started to say something, then stopped. After all, Umaru didn't exactly have a good reputation when it came to being an otaku. It wasn't his place to decide whether she should reveal that side to Honju Kade. Honju Kade looked up at him questioningly, then, as if she understood, glanced at the others. Doma Umaru gave a small, genuine smile and said, "Actually, I'm kind of an otaku." She met Honju Kade's eyes. "And you and Risa are into it too," she added, smiling. Honju Kade's face brightened with understanding. With friends like these, she felt oddly reassured. "I guess I felt foolish for worrying." Doma Umaru let out a short laugh, feeling relieved. If Yu's circle included places where she could be herself, that was one more space she didn't have to hide in. "Everyone, finish up. School's tomorrow," Kato Megumi said calmly when the plates were nearly empty. Chitanda Eru glanced at the in-game clock. It was already past 10:30. Raised in a household with old-fashioned routines and decor, she was used to going to bed early. Joining the chat group had already broken that habit twice. Wearing gaming gear this time made the situation worse. If she were found out, she wouldn't have a good explanation. It was better to log off soon. "Thankfully, you told me to finish my homework early," Honju Keita said, relieved. She hadn't expected the event to run this late. No wonder he'd told her to start homework as soon as she got home. At Honju Keita's words, Doma Umaru's expression froze. After finally getting the long-awaited in-game equipment, she was euphoric and completely forgot about her homework. She told herself that doing it now would ruin the perfect image she wanted to present tomorrow, and her hands unconsciously started moving faster. Kato Megumi, however, kept her composure and finished her homework deliberately, but seeing the other two racing against the clock, she hastened her pace to match them. The celebratory dessert didn't last long. After Chitanda Eru finished the cake on her plate, she stuck out her soft pink tongue and delicately licked the cream from the corners of her mouth. A dab of cream clung to the tip, adding a little extra color. She closed her eyes slightly, savoring the sweetness, a detail only Natsume Yuu, with his keen eyesight, noticed. They settled the bill and left the dessert shop. After exchanging farewells and just as they were about to log off, Natsume noticed Kato Megumi across from him blink at him. He hesitated and delayed logging off by a beat. The others, Honju Keita and the rest, logged off one after another, leaving only him and Kato Megumi. "Is something wrong?" Natsume asked directly. "You, could I trouble you to teach me now?" Kato Megumi's face was serious, unusually earnest. "I'm not a genius like Eru or Xiao Mai. If I don't want to be left behind, I have to spend more time practicing." "That's fine, but we can only practice for half an hour," Natsume said, glancing at the time in the shop. "Insufficient rest is bad for learning. Anyway, it's still early for me, so it's not a problem." "Thank you," she replied. Under the kerosene lamp by the shop entrance, she tilted her head and smiled gently. A warm yellow light fell across her shoulder-length hair, stirring in the breeze. The girl who normally didn't attract attention now wore a stunning, fleeting smile like a transient blossom. "Let's go," Natsume said, and started walking. Kato Megumi followed with her hands clasped behind her back, stepping in his shadow until their strides fell into rhythm. The night wasn't completely dark. Alongside the scattered crystal orbs that cast white light, the sky itself was a vast spread of stars like a galaxy. "So beautiful," Kato breathed, and hurried ahead to a little hill. She looked up, spread her arms, and seemed to bask in the starlight. Natsume came up beside her, and they stood with overlapping shadows while a few fireflies danced nearby. After a moment of enjoying the scene, one she couldn't experience in reality, Kato apologized quietly. "Sorry, let's begin." "Okay, take out your weapon," Natsume replied and began instructing her. Under the stars, one of them moved while the other watched and corrected small mistakes. True to his word, the lesson lasted only half an hour. They said their goodbyes, logged off, and after a quick wash-up, Natsume went straight to bed. Chapter 56, The Conflicted Yuki Asuna. The next day, Natsume Yuu walked along the sidewalk with his backpack. Students hurried past him in bursts. At a crossroads, two girls waited and turned toward him. "Osu!" Shiramine Risa's energetic voice rang out. She wore a white shirt with her jacket's sleeves tied around her waist and her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her brown ponytail bounced as she walked, and a permanent-seeming smile lit her face. "You, good morning," Honju Keita greeted, neatly dressed and holding her school bag in front of her with both hands. "Morning," Natsume replied with a faint smile. He quickened his pace to walk by Keita's side. Keita said she got second place. How did she do that?" Risa demanded as they walked, impatient. Like Doma Umaru before, she couldn't understand how Keita could place so highly when she'd put all her points into defense. "Haven't you told her yet?" Natsume asked Keita, surprised. He thought she already had. For something like this, it's best to share it with everyone." Keita's smile was as natural as ever. "All right, actually, although I put all my points into defense." Natsume smiled knowingly and began to explain to Risa. When she heard the reason, Risa gaped. "That's outrageous." Risa's astonishment only made Kade beam with pride. She puffed out her chest and couldn't hide her grin. "You're amazing, Kade," Risa praised without hesitation. Kade swayed slightly, almost tipsy with pride. Natsume glanced at Risa, who met his gaze and flashed a V sign. She knew Kade couldn't take too much praise and was deliberately generous. They walked on for a while before Kade spoke up again. "Actually, Yuu is the most amazing one. I only got second because of him." "Huh? Wasn't it a solo event? Did you team up?" Risa asked, puzzled. "I didn't see any sign of you the whole time. It was so boring. I could only keep drawing there." Kade pouted, looking a little sullen. "Drawing? Okay, and then?" Risa pressed. Risa's smile froze for a moment. She felt something was off. But with Hanju Kade's personality, the unease washed away as quickly as it had come. "So you beat the original second and third place players, and I ended up second," Kade said, voice full of excitement. Her irritation, if she'd had any, flared and vanished almost immediately. Kade bubbled on, clearly thrilled, even though she didn't really know the details herself. She'd heard the story from the UMR trio at the dessert shop last night. "Too bad I missed seeing it live," she added, a little regret at the edge of her tone. "Don't worry about it," Risa said, waving a hand. "Someone will post the footage on the forum." Kade's eyes suddenly lit up. "There might even be videos of the interview," she chirped. Natsume Yuu couldn't help the crooked smile that spread across his face. Not that." The color drained from Kade's face as if she'd been snapped back to reality. She let out a demonstrative wail. "Did anything else happen afterward?" Risa watched them, amused. "So, Kade." "Can't tell." Kade lunged at Yuu before he could finish, clamping a hand over his mouth. Her face flamed red with embarrassment and excitement. Yuu glanced at the people nearby who'd turned to stare. He nodded lightly and said with a teasing tone, "Kade is really bold, doing this right at the school gate." Risa grinned and fanned the moment. Realizing they'd attracted attention, Kade quickly withdrew her hand, her flushed face as enticing as a ripe apple. The onlookers, deprived of further spectacle, continued on their way. The three of them walked the final stretch toward the school entrance amid the chatter of other students. "Did you go to last night's event?" someone called out. "No, I had a makeup exam this morning. Couldn't play." "I went, but I died right at the start. I got killed instantly by a great shield." "What? Who even was first place?" "I've heard of him, some top player from other games. I didn't even see the enemy clearly before I was out. Completely unreasonable. You guys wouldn't believe it if I told you who killed me." Fragments of conversation drifted to them as they passed other students. Risa covered her mouth to stifle a laugh. If they knew the person who eliminated them was at our school, they'd flip. "Ahmed." Kade clutched Risa's sleeve, still pink-cheeked. "What should I do?" Risa only smiled inscrutably, enjoying the tease. They reached the school building, split off toward their respective shoe lockers, changed into indoor shoes, and headed to class. Natsume Yuu slid into his desk and noticed several boys gathered in a tight cluster, their conversation eager and loud. "That first place guy, don't I know his face from somewhere?" "Me too. He looks familiar. He's so good looking. Did you see the forum video?" "Yeah. He's handsome and amazing. To go forward in the face of so many enemies. Insane. He's probably a real-life kendo master, maybe even a so-called sword saint. Man, I want to learn like that." Yu listened calmly as the boys dissected the footage. He stared out the window instead of joining the speculation. Faces in games could be altered. Avatars didn't need to match reality. Add to that the myth that top-tier players put in insane hours, the reluctance of most people to accept they're outclassed, and the tendency not to use real names or photos online. There were plenty of reasons no one would link the in-game hero to someone at their school. It made sense that people felt a vague familiarity without being able to place him. That was also why Yu hadn't bothered to change his appearance. He pulled up the group chat in his mind. The UMR trio had already sent messages. Doma Umaru, "Tonight I'm definitely finishing my homework first." The tone of irritation was clear, even in text. Yu teased back before she could dodge. "How late did you stay up doing homework last night?" "If you don't say that, we're still friends." 3 exclamation marks, enough to imagine a long, miserable night. "Morning, Yu. Morning." Their quiet chat, made the classroom feel a little warmer. At that moment, the classroom doorway opened, and Yuki Asuna entered, immaculate in her uniform, posture perfect. "Good morning," she said, holding her bag politely in front of her. "Morning, Yuki." Several voices responded automatically. Asuna walked to her usual seat by the window, smoothed her skirt as she sat, and began arranging the contents of her bag with precise movements. A girl in the front row was passing around a phone, showing a paused clip. "Look, this guy is so handsome," she gushed to her friends. "He got first place last night. Too bad he didn't do the final interview." "As long as we saw him fight, that was good enough," another replied. Asuna glanced up as she straightened her books and noticed the phone's screen. The paused image showed a boy in a black and red coat, half crouched, swinging a long sword, his light purple eyes fixed ahead. For a moment she frowned. The face stirred a memory. She'd seen those eyes recently, though they'd never exchanged names or words. The clarity of them had stayed with her, and now they were on the forum, tied to New World Online. New World Online, she thought. That's the game everyone's been talking about. Asuna didn't play, but with her family's recent involvement in virtual game development, she kept an attentive ear to the market. The buzz matched what she had just heard in class. She folded the thought away, but the image lingered in her mind.